Hello, I'm Dana Duckworth, aka the Big Speaker, and I am welcoming you back to the Hilariously Unemployed podcast, season 3, episode 5. I know the episodes have been a little long to come out this time. We've had some longer breaks, but that's because your girl has been on tour. Like, I've been speaking everywhere, I've been flying everywhere, I've been traveling everywhere, and I'm hilariously unemployed, so I gotta get paid to run this mouth. So that's why we haven't had as many episodes, but I've also been focused on making sure that I'm bringing the audience things that will be fruitful for them in their job search and really help them navigate, along with continuing to highlight job seekers. So, what in the world is going on besides all of my business? Well, the unemployment rate is 4.3% as of August. Not great. I know. I know. So we've seen some huge risks that have happened in areas of pharmaceutical, financial, and retail. You would think that retail wouldn't be as impacted as we're coming up to the fourth quarter and we know holiday shopping is going to be a thing, but nobody is getting away from this economic frenzy that we find ourselves in. And what's the culprit? Current administration, changes in policies, tariffs, of course. It's just the overall economic shifts that we've seen in the last year are truly having an impact on the employment landscape. So, like myself and many others, people are finding themselves hilariously unemployed. And, well, I'll continue to be here for you because it ain't over yet, folks. Unfortunately, we do expect to see many, many more instances of layoffs and large transitions for companies. AI is still there, automation is still happening, and people are really trying to figure out how to reduce cost. And, headcount is the biggest cost that these companies have. Along with that, as if that wasn't enough for us, right? We also have job scams increasing 118% year over year. We've seen job scams increase, with a number of these scams focusing on people at their most vulnerable. They're looking for work, they're eager to work, they're excited to have interviews, they're looking for their next opportunity, and what do you know? There's a scammer on the line. We've seen this come in forms of emails, we've seen it come from actual job listing sites, and of course, text messages. If anybody hits you up for a job via text message and tells you to join them on WhatsApp, it's a scam. Don't fall for it. The most vulnerable states for these job scams, number 1 on the board, Nevada. So be careful out there, folks. Florida making it at number 2, Colorado, Arizona, Georgia, Utah, Virginia, where I'm from, number 7, and then Texas, Maryland, and Washington rounding it out for us. So as if we didn't have enough going on, free speech is only free for some of us now. And I'll leave that right where it is because I want to get to my guest for today's episode. I'm so excited that I am bringing somebody who is on a similar mission to me to really change the stigma behind layoffs and make people feel the way they should feel about it. It's not my failure. It was the business's failure. Duh. I didn't do anything wrong. I prepared to come to work and I did the things that I needed to do. But unfortunately, their budget wasn't done in a way that will allow me to stay. So I'm super excited to welcome an author to the show today. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Jaffe. Steve, say hello to the hilarious.
Hello. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You are so very welcome. Thank you so much for joining me. And like we do every time we have a guest here, how long have you been hilariously unemployed?
The last time I was laid off was summer of 2023.
Wow. And do you have a job now?
Well, I'm an author, so I wrote a book. I'm out promoting it, so I'm sort of self-employed, trying to sell books.
So we will go with boo. Steve has a job. But we're very happy to see that. And a lot of what we've seen with people layoffs, myself included, is that pivot from unemployed by an organization to self-employed, solopreneur, entrepreneur, serialpreneur, because we got to get paid. So
Yep. Yep.
it's truly been a transition for a lot of people. And then we have people who are electing to leave the workforce because of some of the things that are happening. They can see the writing on the wall. So they're going ahead and saying, you know what, don't even worry about me. I'm going to get up out of here. So lots of things are happening. And I've just been watching it in awe over the past 2 years. Like, what is going to happen next.
Yep.
But I am so excited that you are here to talk about your book, to talk about your journey of unemployment. And with that, let's go back to the beginning. Like,
All
tell
right.
me what happened with your first layoff that's made you a layoff survivor, as I like to.
Yeah. Well, you set the stage well. Going back, my very first layoff is spring of 2001. And I'll just kind of set the stage because there's a story arc here that mirrors the arc of the book. It's my first layoff. I'm living in San Francisco. I'm working at a great advertising agency on a great account. I had just gotten married and everything was going great. It was literally and figuratively the springtime of my life. And one day, unexpectedly, I get called into the conference room and I get told that the client is cutting their budget, the agency is cutting the staff, and thank you very much. But today is your last day. Pack your things. You got 5 minutes to leave. And I was shocked. I was completely taken off guard. And it took me a long time to recover from that grief of getting laid off in that way so unexpectedly. Fast forward, it's summer 2023. I just told you it was my last layoff. It's my fourth layoff in my career, and I sail right through it. It's like water off a duck's back. It doesn't affect me at all. And I do some self-reflection to figure out why was it such a difficult thing on the first time around, and this fourth time, it didn't really affect me. And I realized I had learned a set of skills to navigate the stages of grief that come from a layoff. And I found that I wanted to help others that are in a layoff navigate their layoff in months rather than years. So that's the premise behind the book. I take my 10,000 hours of becoming an expert in this subject and I translate it into some real practical, easy to follow strategies that would allow you to not feel that heavy burden of a layoff for a very long time, which then will free you up to go out, be successful in your job hunt, and be successful in what you do thereafter.
Okay, so you have effectively become the Liam Neeson of layoff with my unique set of skills.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Yeah.
It's from the farm of layoff. Okay, so your first layoff happens in person, which is not the
Yep.
case for a lot of people like myself who is in the
No.
COVID
Yeah.
remote hybrid bubble. We didn't have that experience. So
Yeah.
for the audience who's never had that experience, tell us what it's like in person. What are the feelings? What are the emotions?
Oof.
Where are you looking? Like, where do your
Yeah.
eyes go in that space?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you that the last one that I just had, that was virtual. So I got on Zoom, I see my boss and there's HR and all of a sudden, HR shows up. That's not a good sign.
You know.
But no, the first layoff in person, you get called in a conference room and you see the company leadership along with HR, and everybody's real serious. It's real quiet, and there's like a real heavy vibe in the room. You don't know what's going on, and they're very like short and to the point, and it's like your brain starts to you go into like a fog. I would get really sweaty. My heart would start to palpitate. I can't really hear everything that's being said because I'm in shock. I'm like, wait a minute. Like a couple of minutes ago, I was in the middle of this job planning the future. And now you're telling me I got to walk out the door. And, they hand you some paperwork. They tell you about like your severance package and, you have to go pack your things and put it in a box. And what's really hard about that in these open office layouts, everybody can see everything, right? And everybody can watch you pack your desk with somebody maybe from security or HR watching you over your shoulder to make sure you don't take any company secrets. And all of a sudden, these people that you worked with that were friends, colleagues, people that you had a close relationship with, now you're kind of on the outside. You were one of them. Now you're not one of them anymore. And there's this weird sudden shift in like the ground underneath you that it all happens so quickly. It really it can be very confusing.
You described that perfectly. Some of
Yeah.
the feelings and thoughts and emotions of what happens in those spaces. Like I can hear, but I can't hear. Like I'm not
Right.
understanding or I'm not accepting of what is happening right now.
Right.
Kind of in a state of shock. It is very traumatic to go through, whether online or in person. It can be very shocking to your system to be like, no, wait, I was just because you're going from one state of being, like fully engulfed in your work and knowing what you're going to do tomorrow, to now you have no design for what the future is going to be like because this traumatic shift has just happened for you.
Right. Right.
Now, as a person who was newly married back in 2001, you get this news, you go home. What happens from here? Like, how are you navigating after you get the news?
Yeah. Well, um, so 2001 San Francisco, this was the dot-com bubble that burst.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, everywhere around us, there were layoffs. You couldn't turn a corner and not find the same conversation I was having in every other conference room and every other office. And very quickly, that new bride of mine, she got laid off too. So
Oh,
now here we were,
double
both
layoffs.
not, yeah, two layoffs. And we were thinking, we were in great shape. Everything was great. We were happy. We just got married. We were on our honeymoon. And within 6 months, we're both out of work. So we made the decision to actually move from San Francisco to LA because we thought that the job market in LA would be better.
Okay.
And what I realized was that network that I had in San Francisco, I had no network in LA. I had nothing to fall back on. So it was kind of like starting from scratch. And I was out of work for about 18 months. So I was, I wish I could say I was hilariously unemployed. It was not fun. But I was unemployed for 18 months. And what exacerbated that situation was 9/11. So September 11th happened, and
Okay.
any job prospect I had completely evaporated. And it was really difficult. Now, on the other side of that, though, I went from having no prospects, no job, and really being kind of down and out to then I ended up landing probably one of the best jobs I ever had, which was on the advertising campaign for What Happens in Vegas Stays in Vegas.
Okay.
So it was a very big change in everything, and that campaign was phenomenal and it was very successful. But it just goes to show you that you never really know what's around the corner,
Mhm.
and it was a long, hard 18 months, but on the end of
That's a
it,
long corner.
yeah, boy, it did pay off.
Right. Okay. So 18 months of unemployment. At this time, is your wife, has she found anything or how are you all sustaining since you moved to LA?
Yeah, she was able to find another job and she was able to get back to work. I picked up a few things here and there, but
Mhm.
it was mostly a time of a lot of self-discovery and exploration and trying to navigate these stages of grief.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So what happens is you get the news, you're shocked like the first week or two, you don't even know what to do. You don't know if you get up in the morning, if you sleep in, if you go to bed early, if you log on to this or that. It's a very foggy situation for a lot of us. And going through that for 18 months, like I've had people on the show who've been unemployed for a year or longer, and at that point, you do go on that journey of self exploration. Like me, I have so many jobs now that I don't have one job, because I'm leaning on all of my skills and learning what I'm capable of in that process. So it truly is a journey of self discovery. All right. So flash forward to you get to layoff number 4. Tell
Mhm.
us how different these experiences were for each other from 1 to 2 to 3. And then the final boss of 4, where it's kind of just like, all right, it's been nice.
Yeah, yeah. What I found was in the very first layoff, I had a lot invested in that job. I was defining who I was as a person through what I did at work. So like the what it said about me on my business card,
Mm-hmm.
that was who I was, right? And over time, what I realized was I needed to not be so invested in what I did 9 to 5 because that could get taken away from me. And if that gets taken away from me, then what am I? What do I have? So I worked on developing my own, like, one, a very healthy self-care practice that was a very like holistic mind, body, spirit way of building some resilience and building the framework that I would need to withstand any stressful or like traumatic life experience. So I started to exercise more regularly. I started to, prioritize things like getting enough rest and the healthy diet. Started to work on creating a gratitude practice. When you get laid off, something's taken from you, and it's easy to get caught up in what you've lost. Through a gratitude practice, you could start to think about what you still have and what's going well and what you're grateful for. And that's really important mind shift. I also started to work on like a little bit of a meditation, just some easy breathing, spending time with yourself to be intentional and present, a way to kind of ground yourself that gives you insight into um, where you should be in your life and what you should be doing. One of the things that a layoff does create is some time and some space. And in that time and space, it's important to think about, is your career path in alignment with your priorities and your values and what brings you joy? Is your career path one that is sustainable? So like you mentioned earlier, there's so many careers right now that are affected by layoffs because of AI and all of these new technological developments. So if your career or your industry is experiencing contraction, maybe now is the time to pivot. Otherwise, you may just end up getting caught up in another layoff because your industry is contracting. So it's a really good time for self-reflection, and some of those things create the space for that self-reflection. And all of that is what I learned along the course from layoff 1 to layoff 4. So I didn't have so much of myself invested in these roles. And I was able to kind of define myself in a broader spectrum.
That's so important. I definitely was like, I'm Dana Duckworth from some company and I'm synonymous with this. And now I'm just Dana Duckworth, the big speaker who's just out here helping people. I am a servant of the people. I am a people person. So it's nice to see that shift from the company mindset and what it is your title is to your own personal brand and what your mission is. It's less of a title and more of a mission. And with that, we are both on a mission to make this journey for other people a lot easier. So your book, The Layoff Journey from Dismissal to Discovery. Let's talk about it. Like, when did you start to write this book? Was it between layoff 3 and 4? Or is this a new avenue that you say, you know what, I got time again. Let's go.
Well, I always wanted to write a book. And I played around with different ideas, but I never had the subject matter that I thought, okay, I would dedicate like a lot of time and effort on this one particular thing. And on that last layoff, about 20% of the company was laid off along with me.
Okay.
And there were really close, like, friends and colleagues that I was laid off with. Some of them, they were really early in their career. This was their first layoff. Some of them this was their second layoff in like 12 months. And I thought to myself, I would really like to be able to tell these folks like what to expect and how to get through it, and take like those 10,000 hours of becoming Liam Neeson and being an expert, and tell them like, here's how to do this so that you're not spent in years trying to recover. You can get through it really quickly. And that's when I realized, okay, that's the subject for this book, because I could not only help those 20% of the people I was laid off with, but I could help so many more people too. So that's when kind of the light bulb started to go off. And I thought, all right, this is like a really worthwhile endeavor that I could really offer some help on, primarily because there really aren't any other books out there that talk about the grief from a layoff. All the books basically pick up with, Okay, you got laid off. Here's how you update your resume. Here's how you do your LinkedIn. Here's how you go on job interviews. And here's how you get your next job. But before you do any of that stuff, you've got to process the grief from the layoff. Otherwise, you're not going to be successful doing any of the other stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
So I found kind of an opportunity in the market to say, well, nobody's addressing this. And I think I've got something valuable to say. So I felt like I found a niche.
You definitely did find one. People often don't. If you haven't been through it, then you don't know the feeling of it. You don't know how heavy it can be some days. I remember just being laid off and then trying to figure out like, what do I do next? So I started to network. And being in a networking space and people asking what you do, I will fumble over it so hardcore. I wouldn't know what to say. I didn't know how to introduce myself because I just didn't know. Like I had lost a lot of my self-worth or what I thought was my self-worth with that role. So it became really hard for me to kind of navigate in that space. And of course, you start feeling worse because now it's like, I can't even network because I don't even know who I am and what I do. So it is a state of grief. And what you've done in this book is broken it down by those many different stages. So talk to us about stage one and then kind of how the book progresses to get people to where they need to be in order to be successful post layoff.
Yeah, yeah. So these stages of grief were created by a behavioral research scientist. Her name is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she was examining terminally ill patients as they were transitioning, and found that they moved through these stages of grief, um, generally speaking. And she also found that the friends and family of these patients were also moving through these similar stages.
Mm-hmm.
Since that time, it's been recognized that really any traumatic life event follows these stages of grief. So if you get a divorce, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
or of course a layoff is a traumatic
Mm-hmm.
life event, you will generally go through these 7 stages. Now, they're not necessarily linear. I'll list them off in numerical order, but they don't always follow one after the other. And some people may not experience all 7. You
Mm-hmm.
may experience all of them on the same day, or maybe none at all on a given
Right.
day, right? And they're unique to each person's life experience. But um, these are, in order: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance,
Mm-hmm.
reconstruction, and renewal. And one of the things that I'll say is the really heavy lifting of the emotional weight of this grief is the first 4:
Yeah.
denial, anger, bargaining, and depression.
Mm-hmm.
After those 4, you kind of turn the corner and you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that's where you come out of this with a new perspective, with maybe some new direction, or maybe a recommitment to your current career path.
Yeah.
But it's really where like some of the enlightenment happens, and that's acceptance, reconstruction, and renewal. So um, you know, it's important when you've had a layoff that you understand what these are, and that you recognize that this journey through them is a normal process, and it gives you a sense of comfort in
Mm-hmm.
knowing that in knowing what to expect, and
Yeah.
knowing that um, okay, I'm not alone here. Everybody else has kind of gone through this similar stages, and here's the best way to get through them in a way that doesn't hold you back in the future.
Yeah. I want to pulse on one of the areas that I feel like people don't talk about enough, the anger.
Yeah,
Or people don't outwardly exhibit it. There's this idea that this thing happens to you and you're supposed to be like, oh, it's just business. It's just
yeah,
business. No,
yeah,
it's very personal. It's
yeah,
not business to me. It's very personal, and the impacts of this are very personal to me. So there are times when you will be angry. And I think that is an okay emotion to have,
yeah,
because, this is a very personal thing and it's going to change really the trajectory of your life. It may be for a short time, it may be for a longer time, but from that day forward, you're going to have some form of pivot. So I think the anger is one that we don't talk about enough.
You're absolutely right. I mean, something has been taken from you, right?
Mhm.
It's your job. It may be your purpose. Of course, it's your paycheck. It's
Yeah.
probably your health insurance. It's
Hmm.
your routine. It's
Hmm.
your community of people that you work with every day. Um, it's a lot, and you had no say in this. It's being forced upon you, and it's totally normal to be angry about the situation. I think what's important is that you don't let that anger consume you,
Hmm.
and you kind of redirect it in a healthy way.
Yes. And then talk to me a little bit about bargaining. That's an interesting concept for me. So,
Yeah,
how do you feel that plays a role in the process of grieving your layoff?
yeah. So there's two ways that the bargaining manifests in a layoff. In one aspect, you can and you should bargain or negotiate your layoff severance agreement. So
Hmm.
when HR passes you that document across the desk, um, don't sign it right then and there. Take it home and spend some time with it, and make sure that what they're offering fits what your needs are. There are some
Yeah.
situations where you may need more healthcare than what they're offering. You can
Hmm.
go back and present your case and ask for more healthcare. And same thing with the severance payment. There's a lot of things there that you can negotiate that people don't necessarily realize or understand. It's not unlike a lot of things where what they're presenting is really their first offer, and it may
Hmm.
not be their best offer. So
Yeah.
you want to make sure you bargain or negotiate your severance agreement. But beyond that, within yourself, there's a bargaining that's taking place because
Hmm.
you're thinking to yourself, what if I had done something different? Um, what could I have done in this situation? How could I have reacted differently here? And did
Hmm.
that have any effect on this layoff situation? And so within yourself, you start doing a lot of second guessing, and you start thinking or obsessing over if only I had. And
Yeah.
what's really important here is to say, instead of what if, to say what's next, because all of those questions you're never going to get answers to. You're never
Correct.
going to resolve what would have happened if I had done something differently.
Mhm.
So it's best to just walk away from that and start looking forward into what's next instead of what's behind you.
I like the reframing of that, and looking forward to what's next. So you say there's this shift when you go from the first four stages of grief, and then you turn this corner, and now you're looking more forward. Talk to me about that journey and what people can expect from the book as they get to those final steps.
Yeah. So, it's the acceptance is where you take control of what happens next, right? So, um, the layoff is something that happened to you, but
Yeah.
what happens next is entirely up to you. So,
Hmm.
in the layoff experience, you're out of control, right? But ultimately, where you go from here is entirely up to you. So, you look forward and you take control of your next chapter, because ultimately a layoff doesn't define you. What you do next does. And that
Hmm.
path through acceptance and reconstruction and renewal is partly the self examination to say, um, am I doing what I should be doing? Is it bringing me fulfillment and purpose? Now, sometimes what you're doing is really a means to an end because you need the paycheck, right?
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to align all of these things. But what that means is outside of work, you need to find that purpose and that fulfillment and a way of pursuing your joy so that if and when the job is taken from you, you
Hmm.
still have this source of fulfillment, right?
Hmm.
Don't let the job be your one and only thing. But if you are able to go through that exercise, you may find that that career path that you were on isn't in alignment, or like I said earlier, you may need to do a pivot to stay viable in, or maybe it's some upskilling, some reskilling, or
Hmm.
maybe it's um, a transfer or translation of skills so that you're able to be relevant in the job market to a hiring manager. Um, but that's how you use the pause, and you use that journey to come out of it in a way where when you do get the job interview and they ask you, why do you want this job? You can speak from a place of passion and say,
Yeah.
really, really like what I do and I want to continue doing it. Or, I found that this new path is really in alignment with my personal passion, which,
Mhm.
speaking to your truth and speaking to what you're passionate about, people really respond to that. So
Absolutely.
it's so much, that's why it's so important to do this before you start to re-enter the job market. You'll be setting yourself up for success.
Okay. So let's go to day one. For people who are going through this, it's in their first 24 hours or their first week after they've received notice that this is happening to them. What should they do?
Yeah. First 24 hours, you should take a deep breath and you should sit and say, this sucks. I know this sucks. It's okay that it sucks.
Mhm.
And grieve it, accept it, right? Don't be hard on yourself, but understand that this is no fault of your own. You're not here because you failed.
Yeah.
And what you feel isn't failure. What you feel is grief. So be okay with that and give yourself the space to move through that. You may, within the first 24 hours, still be in that shock and awe denial stage. You're
Mhm.
probably going to be pretty angry. So you need some space. And what I would tell people is, like, if a friend of yours, a very close friend of yours, calls you up and tells you, I just got laid off, you would tell them, I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can do? And you would comfort them, right? Do
Mhm.
that for yourself. Do
Yeah.
for yourself what you would do for a friend in that same situation, right? Um, you also probably want to take a look at that severance agreement and start thinking about, okay, what are my needs right now? When I did that at one point, I didn't have a computer and I knew I was going to need a computer on the job
Yeah.
hunt. So I decided, all right, I was going to go back to them and say, hey, can I keep my computer? They
Mhm.
actually said yes. And that really
Mhm.
helped me a lot. But you need to think through, okay, what's going to get me through this in terms of like my daily material needs? Does the agreement address those? And see if there's a way to negotiate that. And in that, you want to do that financial exercise of looking at, okay, what do I have to get me through here? Because if you're able to see, all right, let's say I've got 6 months of a cushion saved up,
Mhm.
that's one stress that you won't have to carry, right? That's one thing that you don't have to let keep you up at night, because you're going to have so many other things that are going to try and keep you up at night. Financial security. And also, don't be afraid to reach out to your network. Communicate with your friends, your family, your colleagues, your mentors. Tell them what's happened to you, because those people will also be comforting you and telling you, I'm so sorry that happened to you. What can
Yeah.
I do for you? Right? Don't
Mhm.
get caught up in that shame and embarrassment that somehow I did something wrong and this is a reflection on me. It's not. You're basically in the wrong place at the wrong time, and you're the result of somebody trying to balance their books.
Mhm.
So reach out, communicate, and accept the support and the kindness that people want to offer.
Yeah, I think that's part of breaking the stigma and the shame for a lot of us. When it happens, we don't necessarily, like, our first thing is not to share, and it's not to tell the world that, oh, I no longer have employment. But that absolutely should be one of the things that you think about when it becomes obvious to you that, like, this is the path, I'm no longer employed. I know for me, I've been through an acquisition where it was a change in management, and of course, with that comes a change in employees. So during that time, I did not rely on my network, and it took me so much longer to find anything to do. But this time, it's like, all right, I'm making the announcement. I'm telling the people, I'm letting them know what I want to do. I'm letting them know what I'm doing now, what I'm capable of doing. And it kind of helps you shoulder some of that grief, because now these people are becoming your job searchers, or they're connecting you with the community that they have who could maybe be your next employer, or they're sharing things with you to help you get through that process. So don't go it alone, folks. Don't keep it tucked in your back pocket. Literally nothing to be ashamed of. 40% of people will go through this in their lifetime of their career. So having community, having space to share it, and to not just be by yourself in that anger or in that depression stage is going to be so important in the pivot of this. Your book is not just a book for them to read. It's actual practices inside of it and activities for them to do in order to get through these stages. Talk to me about some of the prompts or some of the activities that you have in there.
Yeah. So at the end of each chapter, there's a little bit of an exercise that will give somebody, like you said, like a practical guide to get through these stages. One of them that I like is finding your own personal North Star.
Mhm.
And in that exercise, you would start to think about, like, what is my passion? What is my purpose? What are my values? Is the path that I'm on in alignment with those? And you start to think through, like, what is my guiding light? What is the thing that um, um, drives me forward and drives me through? And so it's a great exercise about using a North Star, like your own personal mission statement.
Mhm.
I like that a lot. Um, and yeah, at the end of each chapter, there's exercises like that.
I really like that. I like practical and actionable things for me, especially as an instructor, as a speaker. I like to be able to give people something that they can do instantly. Like, you can walk away and you can put this into practice today. So I love that your book includes those exercises for them to not just think about doing the steps or think about going through the processes, but actually to put action towards the process and kind of navigate through it that way. For anyone who is listening or watching the show, what would you like to share with them if they are impacted by a layoff currently? What are some lasting words you like to give to the audience?
Yeah, I think this moment isn't the end of your story. It's just the messy middle before your next beginning.
Yeah.
So um, I think the idea that this isn't a roadblock, this is a detour. Um,
Hmm.
in the thick of it, it doesn't always feel that way, but
Yeah.
and I think it's because layoffs can really shatter your sense of security, your identity, and your self worth.
Hmm.
But you haven't done anything wrong. This is simply what happens, and a feeling when something meaningful is taken away.
Yeah.
So instead of rushing to fix it by updating your resume or leaping into job boards, give yourself permission to pause,
Hmm.
feel, and heal. Processing the emotional impact first is what clears the fog and allows you to move forward with clarity, confidence, and purpose.
I like that. Pause, feel, and heal,
Yep.
folks.
Yep.
This has been an amazing conversation, and I'm so glad that we got connected, because your resource is one that I know my audience can benefit from today. Where can people find you? Where can they get the book, and how can they support you as an author on this journey?
Yeah, thank you so much. You can go to my website. The website is thestevejaffe.com.
Mhm.
You can download a free chapter and you kind of take it for a test drive. If you like it, you can go to Amazon, you can buy a copy. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram and I'm on Substack. So I'm kind of in all the places. And if anybody's going through a layoff right now, and they'd like to reach out, I'm happy to offer any kind of support or assistance in somebody's network. I'm here to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being such a resource. Ladies and gentlemen, hilarious, especially go and get that book, The Layoff Journey from Dismissal to Discovery, and learn how to get through those stages of grief and come out on the other side of that. Now, I want to thank you all for joining me for yet another episode of The Hilariously Unemployed, where I've been your favorite opportunity seeker, Dana Duckworth, aka the Big Speaker. Y'all see me around, and if you don't, check on me, okay? I love you much. Thank you for watching and listening. See you on the next episode, everyone. Bye.